Well, for those of you that have not met, I'm Larry Dawalt. I'm one of the Dharma leaders, and tonight is the fourth and final talk of our four-part series on the 10 perfections. We started on October 26th with Joy providing an overview and teaching on generosity. Then came Thea, teaching on virtue, renunciation, and discernment. And last week, Ward Simmons spoke on persistence, endurance, and truth. So tonight I get the last three: determination, goodwill, and equanimity. And I've enjoyed studying all of the 10 perfections, and I want to pass along to you two specific resources I've found. The first is an audio series. I guess I have to hold up my phone because it's in there. It's by Jack Kornfield. It's called Your Buddha Nature, Teachings on the 10 Perfections. So for those of you who learn with audio as I do, it's available on iTunes and of course on Audible. It's 9 hours, and there's an overview and then a chapter on each of the 10 perfections. The other resource is a book, Good Heart, Good Mind, which was also taken from a series of retreat teachings. This is by Thanissaro Bhikkhu, the abbot of Metta Forest Monastery in Southern California, right outside of San Diego. And like all of his writings, this book is available without charge. It's amazing, all the books that are available through this wonderful resource. The website is Watmetta, W-A-T-M-E-T-T-A, watmetta.org. But if you'll type in, of course, the Metta Forest Monastery, I'm sure it'll come up. And it's amazing what all is available. He's a wonderful translator and expositor of the Dharma. And particularly for tonight, I've utilized a book by Bhikkhu Thera, The Four Sublime States, Contemplations on Love, Compassion, Sympathetic Joy, and Equanimity. A minute about the word perfection when we talk about the 10 perfections, because this can be a confusing term and quickly lead to the conclusion that we're talking about unattainable things. I prefer the word perfect. Say, well, what's the difference between perfect and perfect? Perfect to me is about an intention. It's what I'm working on. Those things that are perhaps not perfectly found within time, but are timeless qualities. A baseball player with a perfect swing is going to get a hit maybe 1 out of every 3 times. A basketball player works to perfect his or her shot. Just as a tennis player may miss a serve, a golfer may hit one in the woods, or a cook, since we're coming up on Thanksgiving, who doesn't get the pecan pie to set just right, might still be perfecting his recipe. It's about effort and making progress, and it's certainly about intention. So let's get into our study, starting with determination. Determination is a common word in the English language, and it's generally defined as firmness of purpose, resoluteness, the act of deciding definitely and firmly, and our firm or fixed intention to achieve a desired end. Jack Kornfield tells the story of the seeker who climbed a great mountain and finally, at the top of the mountain, found the old wise man there and asked him, "How do I attain this holy life?" The wise man looked back and simply said, "You must follow your heart." Then the man who climbed the mountain said, "Well, that sounds pretty easy." "Ah," the wise man said, "to follow your heart, you're also going to need a strong constitution." A constitution is one of those old-fashioned words that you don't hear much anymore, but when we hear it, especially in the United States, we think of a specific document, the Constitution, the basic written set of principles that set up our government. But the specific definition, and the definition I hope the seeker took back from the wise man down the mountain, is that a strong constitution is a body of fundamental principles or established precedents. It has focus, it takes aim, and it's an ordering of purpose. Thanissaro Bhikkhu writes, determination is basically a focused desire. It's an attempt to bring our random desires into some kind of order, to give priority to some things over others, so that our conflicting desires don't work at cross purposes and get in the way of what we really want. Focus, determination, the establishment of priorities. Think about the preamble to the Constitution. Some of you probably still know it by heart. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution. Form, establish, ensure, provide, promote. These are lofty terms that certainly take determination to achieve. Another word that goes back to the history of the United States, and specifically the Declaration of Independence, is the word resolved. There was a dedication and determination that freedom from tyranny would be secured regardless of the cost. Highest priority. There's a passage in the Dhammapada saying that if a wise person sees a long-term happiness that comes from abandoning a short-term happiness, the wise person will abandon the short term for the sake of the long term. In other words, we make it a point to follow through with what needs to be done and not let hungers and cravings deceive us into following desires that are at cross purposes with developing the perfections. Stephen Covey, the author of the book 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Remember that book? It was just, seemed like everybody had it and read it. He calls this finding the biggest yes. Covey writes, you have to decide what your highest priorities are and have the courage, pleasantly, smilingly, non-apologetically, to say no to other things. And the way you do that is by having a bigger yes burning inside. The enemy of the best is often the good. This is determination, staying the course, a strong commitment, a constitution of fundamental principles and established precedents, such as these 10 perfections as taught by the Buddha. So that's number 8. Let's move to the 9th perfection. Metta in Pali can be translated as loving kindness or goodwill. Each week here at IMCC, we typically do a metta meditation, starting with ourselves, extending to a loved one, and then extended to all beings. We use phrases like, may you be filled with loving kindness. May you be safe from inner and outer harm. May you be well in body and mind. May you be at ease and happy. Again, Thanissaro Bhikkhu writes, to understand goodwill, to have right view about goodwill, it's important to understand its relationship to karma. For people to be happy, they have to act skillfully. So when you extend goodwill to others, you hope that they will understand the causes for true happiness and be willing to act on them. In other words, you're not simply wishing them to be happy, whatever they're doing right now. After all, they may be doing some very unskillful things. Another lesson regarding karma and goodwill is that the Buddha speaks of goodwill as a determination, something you make up your mind to pursue. We can sit and do metta for a week, but what happens when somebody cuts us off in traffic? May all beings be happy, but may this driver, blah, 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 blah. Another lesson regarding goodwill and karma is that goodwill is best expressed in our actions. Being content, easy to instruct, easy to support, living minimally in regards to desires. Expressing metta to some people is harder than others. I have a little phrase that sometimes is helpful when extending metta at difficult times. Sort of like a workaround, I guess you would call it a hack. In spite of the way seems to be to me, in my opinion, may you be filled with loving kindness. In spite of the way things seem to me, may you be safe from inner and outer harm. In spite of the way things seem to be, may you be well in body and mind. In spite of, may you be at ease and happy. I wish you, in spite of all, I wish you and me the strength to act and be skillful. And lastly, equanimity. Equanimity means even-mindedness. Monty Thera writes that equanimity is a perfect, unshakable balance of mind, rooted in insight. Equanimity furnishes compassion with an even, unwavering courage and fearlessness, enabling it to face the awesome abyss of misery and despair which confront boundless compassion again and again. On the same subject, Tanisaro writes, equanimity functions well when it helps you to let go of what cannot be changed, or of something whose change cannot be stopped, so that you can focus your energy on what can be changed and what is worth changing. Equanimity doesn't mean not having likes or dislikes. It simply means not letting your likes and dislike take over your mind. You need to have equanimity about the things you cannot change so that you can have the strength and energy to work on the things you can change and improve. Sometimes it is what it is, but at other times it is what is, but can be more with persistence, effort, and determination. One of my old gurus, Wayne Dyer, does that ring a bell for anybody? Wayne Dyer. Wayne Dyer said that there are two things we should never worry about. We shouldn't worry about what we cannot change, because we cannot change it. And we shouldn't worry about what we can. We should just get to work on it. Equanimity is about ups and downs, but not just our ups and downs. It's about everyone's ups and downs. It's staying balanced. One exercise I do at Hospice and Palliative Care Charlotte region, where I work with especially new employees, is an exercise called Just Like Me. You might have done it before. But basically what it emphasizes is that we've all had and have happiness. We all have had and have sadness, disappointments, joys, sorrows. And when you do the exercise, you fill in the person's name and you look at them and you say, just like me. And when I finish doing this exercise, especially if I do it in a room with a lot of people like this, it's so noisy you can't hear, because they start talking to each other and they get louder and louder and louder. And when I first did it, I was wondering, well, why are they talking to each other? And it's because they just discovered the person there is just like me. So I should talk to them. Can we, just like me, to those around us? Can we, just like me, to those who maybe we have previously been uncomfortable with? Can we, just like me, and find new territory? As Bonte Thera writes, equanimity is a world where that little share of happiness allotted to beings is mostly secured after many disappointments, many failures, and many defeats. A world where only the courage to start anew again and again promises success. A world where beings who were a short while ago connected to us by sympathetic joy are at the next moment in want of our compassion. Such a world needs equanimity. Such a world needs encouragement. Such a world needs resilience. Such a world needs the ability to say, oh, the mind has wandered. And we begin again and again and again. Close with a poem. A young boy cried and wished he'd die because the game was lost. He'd give anything to hit the ball, no matter what it cost. His teammates left. He was all alone. His eyes were puffy and red. His father called him to his side. I heard what he said. Swing again, little man. Next time, swing again. No matter whether you hit or miss, I'll always be your friend. You won't always be the hero, but your heart will always mend if you pick up the bat, stand in the box, and always swing again. A student cried and wished he'd die because he failed the big test. His teacher said it would be okay, but he thought that was just setting jest. Class dismissed. He was all alone. He walked home and went to bed. Then his father sat down by his side. I remember what he said. Try again, young man. Take that test again. No matter whether you pass or fail, I'll always be your friend. You won't always make an A or B, but your heart will always mend if you hit the books and study hard. Take that test again. Young man cried and wished he'd die because he didn't get in. His school application was rejected. There were no others to send. His room was a mess. The grass was high. His dog needed to be fed. His father called him out to his shop. I remember what he said. Look again, son of mine. You got to look again. You might not make the Ivy League, but I'll always be your friend. A no or two won't block your way if you concentrate on reaching the end. Do another search. Sit down and look again. A husband cried and wished he had died because his job was gone. He didn't know it was coming. He thought he'd been done wrong. He felt he was in deep water. He didn't know how long he could tread. He dialed the phone and heard a voice. This is what was said. Jump back in, you son of mine. Plant your feet and jump back in. You might get fired a dozen times, but I'll always be your friend. There's someone out there who needs you. There's a race that you can win. You show them what you're made of. Get up and jump back in. Father cried and wished he'd die because his dad was gone. His mother's heart was broken. He wanted to be strong. They buried his dad. The people left. The man just shook his head. Then he heard a voice from the outer realms, and this is what it said. Walk again, son of mine. You can walk again. Even though I'm gone now, I'll always be your friend. I know your heart is breaking. You think it will never end, but you can keep on going. Move your feet. Walk again. A young boy cried, wished he died because the game was lost. He'd give anything to hit the ball, no matter what it cost. His father sat down by his side. He smiled and rubbed his head. I sat here with your pappy years ago, and this is what he said. Swing again, little man. Next time, swing again. No matter whether you hit or miss, I'll always be your friend. You won't always be the hero, but your heart will always mend if you pick up the bat, stand in the box, and always swing again. Though we may not hit all of the perfections every time, may we swing again.